In this lesson, we will examine instructional design models for online learning. Within this lesson, participants will be able to first discuss the history of instructional design models, then examine specific models for designing online learning courses, and last compare the strengths and weaknesses of specific models for online learning courses. To begin with a brief history of instructional design models. Early instructional design models were based on behaviorism. Behaviorists believe that learning is a change in observable behavior caused by an external stimuli in the environment. However, some educators claim that not all learning is observable and there is more to learning than a change in behavior. As a result, there has been a shift away from behaviorist to cognitive and constructivist learning theories. Cognitive psychology claims that learning includes the use of memory, motivation, thinking, and reflection. Cognitive theorists view learning as an internal process. Constructivism claims that learners interpret the information according to their personal reality, that they learn by observation, processing, and interpretation. Constructivists believe learners learn best when they can contextualize what they learn for immediate application and personal meaning. A recently proposed theory under discussion is connectivism. Connectivists believe learning is not under the control of the learner due to the information explosion in the current age. Learning is determined by others and is continually changing. Connectivists also believe that some knowledge will reside in technology, while some will reside in humans. Next, we will address the three fundamental questions addressed by all instructional design models. Various models address these three fundamental questions in various stages of design. These three questions correspond to three fundamental phases of instructional design models. The first question, where are we going, is the analysis phase, where we analyze the context, the task, and the learners. At the end of this phase, we need to have the learning goals. The second question, how are we going to get there, addresses the instructional strategy phase. At the end of this phase, we need to have the learning objectives, learning outcomes, assessments, instructional strategies, and the delivery medium. This phase is the core of the design. The third question, how do we know we got there, is the evaluation phase. At the end of this phase, we must make some decisions concerning revisions, improvements of the course materials. We will now examine four instructional design models for online learning. The first is the ADDIE model. The ADDIE model was developed in the 1970s and is still the most commonly used model in instructional design. ADDIE is an acronym for the 5 stages of a development process: analysis, design, development, implementation, and evaluation. The ADDIE model relies on each stage being done in the given order, but with a focus on reflection and iteration. We will take a look at the various stages involved in this model. The first stage is the analysis phase. Before you begin developing any content, you should analyze the current situation. Start with a series of questions to understand the current situation and also to understand the goal of the training itself. Some of the main questions addressed during this phase are: what is the typical background of the students? What do the students need to accomplish? What are the desired learning outcomes? What instructional goals does the project focus on? What is the most conducive learning environment? And what limiting factors exist? The second phase is the design phase. This stage determines all the goals, tools to be used to gauge performance, various tests, subject matter analysis, planning, and resources. In the design phase, the focus is on the learning objectives, the content, subject matter analysis, lesson planning, assessment instruments used, and media selection. Some of the major questions addressed in this phase are: what is the main idea of the project? What media will be used? What are the available resources? What level and types of activity will be used? How will you implement the parts of the project? And how much time is to be assigned to each task? Stage 3 is the development phase. This phase starts the production and testing of the methodology. In this stage, designers make use of the data collected from the two previous phases and use this information to create a program that will relay what needs to be taught to the participants. Development is all about putting it into action. It aims to address the following questions. Is the time frame being adhered to in relation to what has been accomplished in terms of the material? Are members working effectively as a team? Are participants contributing as per their optimal capacity? Are the materials produced up to task on what they were intended for? The next stage is the implementation phase. Once you have completed your course and you are satisfied that it is fully tested, it's time to share them with the learner. The decisions made in the design phase will influence how this is actually carried out. The following are examples of what can be determined. What will your response be if, after presenting activities to the students, things do not go as planned? Will you go for implementation on large scale or small scale? When the student group gets the materials, can they work independently or is constant guidance required? The last phase is the evaluation phase. Getting feedback on every aspect of the course is really important so that you can improve and revise the content. Here's what to focus on. What factors will the effectiveness of the project be determined? When will the data related to the project's overall effectiveness be collected and how? Determine a system for analyzing participant feedback. And how will you revise certain aspects of the project before its full implementation? The second model we will discuss is the Dick and Carey model, also known as the Systems Approach model by Walter Dick and Lewin James Carey. The first version of the model was published in 1968. The model has been modified over the years. The image you see on the right of the screen represents the fourth edition of the model. These modifications were the result of the emergence of several important concepts and procedures. These influences include performance technology, content analysis, multi-level evaluation models, and total quality management. All 9 steps are connected, and some influence others directly while others influence them indirectly. Stage 1 is the instructional goals. The first step is to figure out these instructional goals. This means that you are able to or will be able to identify what it is the students need to learn. Instructional analysis is the second step. This means you are determining the skills that your students will need to learn what you plan to teach them. Stage 3. Next, you will have to assess which skills the students have out of those that you previously determined are needed for this lesson. Stage 4, you must write performance objectives based on the instructional analysis. Stage 5, you must create a test consistent with the performance objectives that will reflect what you're hoping to teach the students. Stage 6, you begin to outline your lesson plan. This means that you will develop instructional strategies, including pre-instructional activities, instruction, practice and feedback, testing, and follow-up activities. Next, you will develop and select instructional materials, typically including a learner's manual, instructor guides, and multimedia and assessments. Stage 8, you will design and conduct a formative assessment to determine how to improve instruction. Last, you will revise instruction based on the data collected in Step 8. The third model we will discuss is the SAM model, and it is suggested as an alternative instructional design model for ADDIE. SAM is an acronym for the Successive Approximation Model. SAM model is agile and iterative. Agile means multiple steps are happening at the same time. Iterative means each development stage in SAM is cycled, and each cycle should be closer to the ideal than the last one. The iteration makes room for evaluation and changes to the development as needed. There are 3 phases of SAM. The first phase is the preparation phase. SAM starts with the preparation phase, but not the same preparation as an ADDIE. The preparation and information gathering in SAM is quick. Savvy Start means the development focus is to ensure alignment between the learner's performance needs and the learning solution. In this preparation phase, all parties should be involved and start a collaborative brainstorm session to establish the project's foundation. The second phase is the iterative design phase. In this phase, the Silicol model, with the 3 iterations of design, prototype, and review, is quite similar to other instructional design models such as ADDIE, which involves the steps of design, development, and evaluation. All parties' ideas and assumptions are discussed, prototyped, and evaluated early on, approaching a usable product. In this iterative development phase, led by the instructional design, all parties work collaboratively to go through the development, implementation, and evaluation together. The 4 steps of this phase start with a design proof, which derived from the first iteration development, move to alpha, which is a complete version of the instructional application, then evolve into beta, which is a version after feedback in the alpha step, and finalize into gold, a version after feedback in the beta step. Instructional designers and others will continually analyze and evaluate throughout the process. The last model we will examine is the rapid prototyping model. The idea of rapid prototyping, as it applies to instructional design, is to develop learning experiences in a continual design evaluation cycle that continues throughout the life of the project. This cycle, known as the spiral cycle or layered approach, is considered to be iterative, meaning that products are continually improved as the cycle continues. The overlapping boxes in the figure on the right of your screen are meant to represent the fact that the various processes do not occur in a linear fashion. In other words, the analysis of needs and content depends in part upon the knowledge that is gained by actually building and using a prototype instructional system. The conventional 3-step process of creating an effective prototype. The first step, creating the prototype. This is the stage where you create the model based on the learning needs of your audience, the instructional strategy decided beforehand, and the technical scope of the project. The second phase is the reviewing phase. This is the stage where your clients and/or users step in to have the first peek. They review the prototype for functionality and usability. This stage comes quite early in the developmental phase. Last is the refining phase. This is your chance to make slight tweaks or revamp the prototype to match the feedback and recommendation of the users.